Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking about the new estate and gift tax exemption for 2022. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Again, my name is John. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel as we tackle these estate planning issues and other various legal issues. Today, we are going to be talking about the estate tax and gift tax exemption amount because the IRS just announced that they are increasing both the exemption for the gift tax and the estate tax for 2022. One of the things that they do is they adjust it for inflation. And so, as you probably are well aware, this year there has been just an amazing amount of inflation. And so they're adjusting the exemption for next year accordingly. So we're going to start with the gift tax, work our way to the estate tax, and then talk about how these two work together. All right, so for 2022, the IRS has raised the exemption amount for the gift tax from $15,000, which it was which it is in 2021, to $16,000 in 2022. And so what that means is that you can give $16,000 per recipient each year until, and you will not incur a gift tax. So in other words, for somebody who has maybe a couple of children, a couple of grandchildren, maybe a daughter-in-law or son-in-law, you can give $16,000 to each individual one of those. Now double it if you're married, so $32,000 per person if you happen to be married, and you will not incur any gift tax. And so that is a huge advantage to people who need to go ahead and have a gifting solution in place. And they can do that without incurring a gift tax. So in other words, what the IRS is saying is that if you were to give $10,000 to a person, that is considered a gift, and they're not going to tax you for that. But they do want to tax large gifts. And in this instance, in 2022, it's going to be gifts of $16,000 and above. So you can give $16,000, but $16,000 and a penny, that penny will be above the exemption amount, and that penny will be taxed. I put air quotes around that because the way that it works is it actually comes off of your estate tax exemption, and you don't really pay a tax at the end of the year like you would for a lot of other things. And that's how the estate tax and the gift tax work. So just to summarize, for the gift tax, for 2022, the gift tax exemption amount is going to be raised to $16,000 per recipient. So you can imagine you can start giving away just quite the sum of money to your family and to anywhere else without incurring a gift tax. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that you can give above $16,000 to someone. As an example, you could give $25,000 to someone, and then all of a sudden you're $9,000 above the exemption amount for that person. Well, what you should do is your CPA should report that $9,000. Well, should report the $25,000, and then they'll see that they're $9,000 above the exemption amount. So they are going to track that over time and reduce your estate tax exemption amount accordingly. So you can continue to give $15,000 for this year, $16,000 for the next year, and not incur any gift tax. But you can also give above that. It just comes off of your exemption amount. That could mean something for you. It could mean nothing for you. And so let's talk a little bit about what the estate tax exemption is for 2022. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the estate tax. So there are two types of estate taxes: a state estate tax and a federal estate tax. I believe the last time I looked at the records, about half of the states had an estate tax. Georgia does not happen to be one of those. In 2014, the state of Georgia decided to permanently get rid of the state level estate tax. So there are no state level estate taxes here in Georgia. There is the federal estate tax, though. So estates do get taxed depending on the amount of the estate. So what the government says is that, listen, if you have an estate that is below a certain number, we're not going to worry about it. you can pass that on to the next generation, and we're not going to tax it. So for 2011, that number was 11.7 million, right? 11.70 million. So that's for the individual. For the married couple, that is doubled. So for a married couple, you would have to have an estate that's valued over $23 million in order to incur a federal estate tax. Now, you can imagine that there are just not many people that will apply to. At our firm, we probably only get 3 or 4 people a year that have to worry about the federal estate tax. And I'll tell you what I tell them, which is you've got the good kind of problems. If you're having to worry about paying a federal estate tax, that means you're a decamillionaire. You have tens of millions of dollars. So that's a good problem to have. Well, of course, this is adjusted for inflation as well. So in 2022, that number was raised to 12.06. Yeah, 12.06 million. So what that means is that for a married couple, you have to have an estate over $24.12 million in order to incur a federal estate tax. What the government is saying is that if you have a estate less than this, we're not going to worry about it. So if you've got an estate above that, well, then there are things you can do to reduce the amount of estate taxes that you have to pay. Just takes a lot of planning and forethought. And part of it is that gifting strategy. Start giving away some of the money now to family, to charities, to other places. Not only if you limit it to $16,000, you're not going to incur a gift tax. And if you don't go above the $16,000 per individual or per recipient, then it's not going to really affect your estate tax exemption either. So the way that the gift tax and the estate tax work is that, say, for example, you give away $25,000 to a person in 2022, and that means you're $9,000 over the gift tax amount. Well, your CPA and the government should be keeping track of that. And what they'll do is they'll reduce your federal estate tax exemption by that amount. So, in other words, for that $9,000 overage that you gave away, they'll reduce your exemption by $9,000. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, and it isn't a lot, especially when you're talking about $24 million for a married couple or $12 million for an individual. Reducing that exemption by $9,000 really doesn't seem like a lot. But it is something that you need to keep track of, because in 2026, they are supposed to have the exemption. And as a matter of fact, the latest Build Back America Better or Build Back Better program that the Biden administration was going to introduce was going to reduce that estate tax exemption way down to $5,000 or $5 million per individual and $10 million per couple. Doesn't seem like a lot, but you'd be surprised. It does seem like a lot. But you'd be surprised that a lot of people it will apply to because they have over time just accumulated a certain amount of wealth. But at this point for 2022, it is 12.06 million per individual and 24.12 million per couple. So if you have an estate that is less than that, you're not going to have to worry about federal estate taxes. Now, again, if you do give away funds, gifts before you pass away, and you do it in an amount above the gift tax exemption, then your federal estate tax exemption will be reduced depending on what it is when you pass away. So what you have to do is you really have to just keep track of all of these things if it is something that you feel that you might need to worry about. In the 2000s, it was much less than that. I believe at one point it was like $600,000, and so you can imagine with your home and other stocks and bonds, it was relatively easy to be above that. So there's a lot of estate tax planning back then. Not so much these days because the exemption is so high. It is set to sunset in 2026, where they're going to reduce it dramatically. I would imagine that between now and 2026, the government will get together and decide on one way or the other, just to continue this process of raising it according to inflation, or just get rid of it altogether since it applies to only a few people, or they may reduce it down to where it applies to more people. All right, so that is the IRS announcement for the gift tax and the estate tax exclusion amount or exemption amount for 2022. Again, they have raised the gift tax exemption to $16,000, and they've raised the estate tax exemption to $12.06 million per person, or $24.12 million per couple, married couple. All right, so that's all we have for the estate tax and the gift tax today, and the announcement that the IRS has raised it, the exemption amount, to be pursuant to inflation, which they do every year. Of course, because we've had a lot of inflation this year, they've raised it, and so now it's up to $12.06 million per individual. So if you've got an estate below that, you're not going to have to worry about estate taxes, at least not on the federal level. If you happen to live in a state where there are estate taxes, well, then you might have to worry about it then. You just do not have to do that if you're in Georgia. All right, so that's all that we have to offer today. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel as we go through all of these very interesting estate tax, estate planning, and estate tax and gift tax laws and issues and questions. I hope you subscribe to the channel as we go along this journey. And until we see each other with the next video, I'll see you then.